And good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to another edition of the President's Hour. This podcast is designed to give you relevant information and have a lot of discussion and insights. We look forward to all of you joining us. Please share this podcast with your friends, neighbors on your social media platforms. We've got a great show planned for you on today. Today, we're going to be talking about the value of theological education. We have two of my very good friends who are educators on this show. But before we bring them on, let's just talk about a little bit of housekeeping stuff. If you want to participate in our show today, you can make sure that you type in a comment into your Facebook or YouTube, whichever platform you're using, and we'll get your platforms live and put them on the air. And your questions for our guests, we'll have some time set aside for doing that. So we're excited to be back. We've been off for a few weeks. Just been a busy time for me, but we're going to try to get back in the rhythm of having our podcast again, coming to you every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 noon Central, live and in person, right here from the Pilgrim Baptist Church of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And this podcast is also in connection with the General Missionary Baptist State Convention of Indiana, in which yours truly serves as the president. So we are excited again about bringing you this podcast, and hope that you're really getting some good information and things out of the podcast, and hopefully you'll feel that way after today's show. So get ready to participate. Tell all your friends, tell your neighbors, call somebody, tell them to tune in. The President's Hour is back on the air, and we're excited for you, our viewers, to tune in with us. So today, as I said, we've got a great show. We're going to be talking about the value of theological education, and we've got two really, really great guys that are going to be a part of this podcast today. And I'm going to first bring in my good friend and brother. He is the dean. Well, he's a provost. I'm sorry. Everybody calls him Dean. So this is Dr. Mark Dean Haywood, provost of Grace School of Theology. Dean, how you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful, marvelous, stupendous. What about you?
Oh man, blessed. I can't complain, and I've learned to speak good Christianese. So whatever is going on in my life, I'm blessed and highly favored. So,
Amen. Amen.
It's
good to see you.
Yeah, you too, my brother, you too. Let's bring in our other guest here today, who is actually the dean of students at Grace School of Theology, my friend and brother, Reverend Willie Gaines. How you doing, man?
I am doing great. Great to be here.
Good. We're glad to have you on, and you guys are down there basking in the warmth of Houston, Texas area, the Woodlands, Texas, where the school is located, and it's 58 degrees here, and it's not going to get no warmer today. So we go from summer to late fall in about 2 weeks.
Wow.
Here in Fort Wayne area. So, but I've lived most of my life in Indiana, so I can't really complain about the weather. And I certainly can't do anything about it. So we, I'm just going to let you know how jealous I am. I'll do that. and I know it's a saying, so I'm going to have to repent for that. But certainly.
All right.
So listen, let's get started. Really, I want to thank you guys for all that you have done in connection with our state convention, and trying to help us bring quality theological education to our state. And we are just excited about the future and what it holds for us in terms of Grace School of Theology. So how about, Dean, if you would just start by giving us a bit of history regarding GST, Grace School of Theology, and we can kind of let our listeners know what is in store, maybe for some of the things in the future as well regarding grace.
Sure, be happy to. We originally started in 2002. Our founder and president, Dr. David R. Anderson, was teaching at one of the local seminaries, and he was teaching in three different departments. And he noticed that foreign students were coming here, and about 80% of the foreign students would come and they liked the lifestyle in the United States, and so they would stay. They wouldn't go back home. And he thought that that just didn't seem quite right. And he also noticed that seminary students were graduating with a lot of debt that they would owe because of their seminary education. And he felt like, there ought to be a place where students could go that wanted to go into the ministry and would not graduate with a lot of debt. And so what he did was he was encouraged by several notable individuals to start Grace School of Theology. So he started Grace School of Theology, and he made it affordable by recruiting wealthy men to help keep the cost of education down, men and women, I should say, to keep the cost of education down. And he also designed or developed the programs in such a way that people could learn where they live and serve while they learn. And so, as a result of that, he created Grace School of Theology, which we say we're a seminary to the world, President Dix. And what I mean by that is we're now in 40 different countries around the world. We teach in 7 different languages, about to start the 8th language in French. We continue to be what I call affordable, attainable, and accessible because we have both online and in-person classes. And so that has gone well. Our student body head count, if you will, has been as high as 700 plus students.
Right.
We're fully accredited by ATS and TRAC, so we have dual accreditation. And we go from a certificate, an AABA, all the way up to 4 different master's programs and a DMin. And in the future, Lord willing, we'll have a PhD program about 3 to 4 years out. And so that's kind of a snapshot, if you will, of the history of Grace School of Theology. I've been there now almost 14 years. I came in as the Dean of Students and the Vice President of Student Services, and now I've been serving as the Provost for about the last 18 months.
Well, man, that's a very rich story and rich history, and I think what we kind of center this on and center this conversation even somewhat in this segment is the affordability.
Sure.
Theological education has been something that many people have perhaps wanted. Lay persons as well as those who are in serving in the various ministry capacities, where it be bivocational pastoral ministry or full-time pastoral ministry, or even missionaries or potential missionaries. So what I want to do is, Willie, let me ask you. You're engaging with students as the dean of students, and what are you seeing regarding students and their, as they matriculate through Grace School of Theology when it comes to cost and affordability?
That's a major thing. As Dr. Haywood mentioned, we're very much affordable. Right now, our tuition rate is $260 per credit hour. And that has proven to be a bargain, especially when you're looking at accredited seminary education. We have a lot of students who have gone to other seminaries or investigated other seminaries, for example, and they like our academic program. And then when they get down to our cost structure, they really are just blown away to see the quality of what we're offering at such an affordable price. And so the level of appreciation for that that cost structure actually goes up as people matriculate through their studies at Grace School of Theology. So it's the best kept secret that people don't know about right now. But more and more people are really kind of opening up their eyes to what we have to offer.
Well, we certainly want to do our part here in Indiana and through the General Missionary Baptist State Convention to make this well-known, program and school. I think you guys have been with us. You've been to our state convention. It proves that you're willing to kind of share your story. Let's talk a little bit about this. Let's talk about what it means to be an accredited school. Now, there are many options out there, and believe me, I have looked at a lot of them personally when it comes to theological education. And so the idea of accreditation is something that I've wrestled with in my own pathway to education. I've had opportunities to go places that didn't have Association of Theological Schools or ATS accreditation or TRACS accreditation. Dean, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things that are different with a program like Grace, which is a fully accredited program, and some of the secondary accredited schools that are out there. Kind of maybe highlight some of the differences, strengths, and weaknesses of that.
Sure. So if you think of accreditation not so much as a police force, but as a quality assurance arm that really helps various schools maintain a certain level of rigor in their program, a certain level of quality in not only the curriculum, but also in the professors that teach the curriculum. And then, of course, the overall structure of the institution. And so we're approved, if you will, for lack of a better word, by one of the largest accrediting bodies in the world. And that's the ATS, the Association of Theological Schools. We originally got a 7-year accreditation. And we are right now in the midst of a 2-year self-study that will finish up in 2024. And all that means is that once they accredit you, you have to meet certain standards, if you will, or certain guidelines for how you do the educational offerings. And we also are accredited by TRACS as well. So we have what I would call a dual level accreditation by TRACS as well as by ATS. And so you always want to pick a school that's accredited because those that are a part of that accrediting body or those that are also accredited will look at that if you decide to get another degree or go higher in some particular area. They'll be looking at whether the school that you're coming from is accredited. And of course, each school has to make a determination as to whether or not they would accept credits, or transfer in credits from other schools. And certainly by being accredited from a reputable accrediting body bodes well for that particular situation.
Tell me. You mentioned TRACS. Explain what that is for our listeners who may not know what TRACS is.
Yeah, TRACS is another what we call accrediting body, if you will. And what we do with TRACS is they take care of basically our undergraduate as well as our graduate area. And so it's just what you might call another level of accreditation, or it's just another accrediting body, if you will.
Does that spell TRACS? Is that how that's spelled? What does that stand for? Do you know?
All caps. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the. I'm so used to using the
right. Me too. Yeah.
But it's
is it transnational?
It's Transnational Association of Colleges and Schools, or colleges and seminaries. So
Okay,
yeah.
got it. And I wanted to kind of bring that out because I'm sure there are going to be people that are going to watch our program, and uh, uh, they're going to be able to want to look this up and see
Sure.
what this is all about. Now, the question I would have for and maybe Willie, you can answer this as well. Uh, if I was applying, let's say, for a church to become a pastor of a church, many churches now are asking for degrees to be accredited degrees. Would would you say that the schools have done enough to kind of reach out to these churches and say, here's the difference between and what ATS accreditation means versus some of your secondary accredited bodies? I mean, would churches really know, in your opinion, what they're looking at when they say we want accredited degrees?
Okay, yeah, I'd like to comment on that. Yes, churches do know. We've recently had an opportunity to attend the National Baptist Convention, and we actually had the proverbial little old lady that came up to our table and was speaking about accreditation. She didn't ask us, she told us. She said they were in the process of looking for a new senior pastor. And the accreditation issue was the number one thing that she spoke about. And she mentioned that from the standpoint that having the accreditation ensured that the candidate had actually gone through and gone through the rigor to verify that they had learned and they knew this information. Now, that's not to throw shade on anybody who does not have accreditation, but that stamp of approval helps to ensure that the candidate has that kind of theological training. And so we emphasize that when we're talking to people, again, not to try to put anyone else down, but just to show that we have that stamp of approval and so forth. So it really is becoming more and more of a big deal. Most of the individuals we're working with, even the members of the congregation in this day and time, you're seeing that people are more highly educated, they're more aware and so forth. And so they're just not gonna sit and just take traditional, just stuff. They want to learn, they want to be ensured that they're being taught the truth. And so that accreditation is actually becoming more and more important.
You know, and yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Let me just piggyback on that.
Sure.
When I was growing up, Mama would buy various products at the house, and they would have what you would call the Good Housekeeping stamp of approval or seal on them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old enough to remember that.
Okay, yeah, and it would kind of give this assurance that the product had gone through an evaluation, an approval process, if you will, and it was up to the quality standards for that particular company. And this is kind of the same thing when it comes to accreditation. It's not the end all be all approval stamp, but it does say something about the fact that you are striving to maintain a certain level of quality, a certain level of rigor in your program, a certain level of professors, if you will.
Right, and I think that's incredibly important, and I bring that issue up and wanted to highlight it because in my own personal journey, when I started to think about going into full-time ministry, I've been kind of bivocational for a while, and I didn't have a degree, accredited degree, or any kind of degree for that matter, and it was right before I decided to go back to school and finish my degree. The thing that came up, and it started, I guess, in the early 2000s. You could see on our National Baptist website, churches beginning to say, we are asking that, number one, you be degreed, and it be from a accredited institution.
Sure.
And of course, as a pastor, you get things in the mail all the time from, hey, this is Joe Blow College of Christian Education, and you can send us $700, and you get a doctoral
You get a degree. Yeah, right.
Yeah, you get a lot of life experience degrees, and there is some validity, I think, to the ideal of life experience when it comes to theological learning, and perhaps many other types of learning as well. But I realized that if I wanted to go to a church that was asking for a full-time senior pastor, and what really, I had to have a degree. And what really kind of brought this to my mind, and I want to see if you guys agree with this, is that we're preaching to a better educated generation and subsequent generations. And it's not to take anything against mama and grandmamas and my mother had a master's degree plus 30 and a retired principal, elementary school principal. So even in her generation, she got her degree, after I was born, so worked hard for it, became a teacher, became a principal.
Amen.
But previous generations in our past, and maybe 40, 50 years ago, you didn't have as many college educated persons constituting our church leadership and our church congregation. And I think that when that shift happened and those persons got old enough to become leaders in churches, they began to say, we're going to require pastors to have a certain level of education. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. Agree 100%. In fact, when we were growing up, or when I was growing up in the Haywood household, my father had a simple phrase that he would share with us all the time. He said, go to school, get a good education so you could take your place in society. So, education was real important in the Haywood household. So when I got ready to pastor, I started pastoring, but, like you, President, I decided that if I was going to be the best pastor I could possibly be, I needed to go get some training. So I went and enrolled in school. And over the years, I have seen that in some cases, the pews are more educated than the pulpit, and the pews are ramping up to the point where there's certain things that they just won't listen to because they've studied too. And so one of our missions in ministry is really to eradicate biblical illiteracy, both in the pulpit and the pews, by doing our best to be biblically accurate, but yet culturally relevant as we teach across the known world.
Sure. I'll tell you this, you talk about the pews being more educated than the pulpit sometimes. I mean, I face that again personally. I mean, I have a gentleman that attends our church on a regular basis who is a retired professor of New Testament theology. Okay. And, has taught
what I'm talking about.
Has taught at Dallas Theological Seminary. And as a matter of fact, I'm trying to see if I have, let's see, I might be able to show this. I don't know if you guys can see this. It's probably backwards, but this is a commentary, Corrupt's commentaries on the book of Hebrews. Well, this particular gentleman is one of the authors, Herb W. Bateman the Fourth. He attends our church on a regular basis. So when you got people who are writing commentaries, and Hebrews is certainly not an easy book to exegete.
That's right.
In terms of the language and the kind of the imagery of the priesthood of Christ and all of those kind of things that are in the book of Hebrews. And when someone like that sitting out there listening to you preach, that is how can I increase my study time by at least 10 hours this week?
Exactly. So, keep you on your toes.
Right. We have a question that's come to us from one of our listeners, and this question is, are classes from the COP, from the Sunday School Publishing Board, accepted at Grace? And I think that's really a great question. And if not, then maybe we need to find some way where we can do that in partnership with our national convention or our Sunday School Publishing Board. You guys can comment on it. Either one of you want to comment on that?
Yeah, at this point is not. I have had some conversation at the national level with Dr. Cuff, Dr. Elliot Cuff, on it, but at this point, it's not. We need to kind of look into it, evaluate the level of rigor, because again, we need to make sure that as we're transferring in classes, we always look at the rigor in the classroom. We always look at the training of the professor. Those are the two main requirements before we transfer in credits. And let me just say that there are some non-credit institutions that we will transfer credits into, or will receive credits from, I should say, if we've done a top to bottom, if you will, evaluation of them, and they have the rigor and the training of the professors.
And that's a great question, I think, and I thank our viewer for submitting it, because one of the things it does is I think it challenges our certificate of progress program, the COP program, to look at how it can be more rigorous and look at the persons that are teaching and their training. The other thing that I think is important here when it regards this is, are we able to now find some synergy between our Sunday School Publishing Board for the National Baptist Convention and some certification, non-credited certification programs at schools like Grace School of Theology? And we had talked about this offline a little bit, and it's probably a good time to bring it up now. But there are a lot of pastors that have come to me and privately kind of said, we look at training for our leadership, deacons, for trustees in churches. Some of the greatest divide in Baptist churches, which are kind of autonomous and have some semblance of variations of congregational form of church government, some more strenuous, some less strenuous. But those churches tend to have a lot of issues when the leadership doesn't have synergy and on one accord. And you have this view sometimes where your deacons and trustees feel like they're like the Senate and the House of Representatives, in our government. They're going to be checks and balances, bro.
Yeah.
You're not
More checks than balances, right?
Yeah, more checks and balances. Correct. And we're not talking about the kind of checks you write in cash.
Exactly.
That's for sure. But if we had, and this is what we want to develop in our state convention, an opportunity to have some type of certification program that pastors could say, hey, this guy or this gal has deacon potential. And we want to see that there could be some training that would set a baseline of minimum standards for deacons, for trustees, officers in the church, so that we know at least we're operating with an understanding that this person has the ability to study scripture, to teach scripture, to on some level practice hermeneutics and exegete certain texts of scripture. Would Grace be interested in doing something like that?
Yeah, let me, and Willie, you feel free to piggyback on what I'm about to say, but we did what I would call a listening tour last year. Well, I guess it was part of this year, as well as last year. And what we did was we went literally from coast to coast listening to pastors. We ended up with the Association of the National Baptist Convention. We ended up talking to about 180 pastors. We started in Houston and ended up in San Francisco, went all the way as far east as Buffalo, New York. went down to Georgia, and we bounced over in a number of different places, and we ended up literally talking to 180 pastors and getting their feedback as to what we should be offering, because we always want to be flexible. We want to be culturally relevant, remain biblically accurate, regardless. And so we got their feedback, and we came back and created a proposal with their information and some other individuals that we worked with, and submitted it to the Lilly Endowment, and they gave us $1 million grant to go off and create classes just like you're describing, and we've called it the PACE program. It's Pathways to Accelerating Christian Education. um, and it's more in line with what you might call certificated programs, deacon training, um, church leadership, um, how to do church management, those kinds of things, church polity. And so we're in the midst of doing what I would call the R&D part of it, research and development, and they'll be pumping out probably some curriculum that can support that very soon. But that was one of the programs that Dr. Cuff and Dr. Young were very interested in, and we're still trying to roll that out as we speak. Willie, you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I can have quite a few comments on that, because the question really kind of reflects where I came from coming into Grace School of Theology. I was that deacon. I wasn't the checking deacon, though. I wasn't the one doing that.
Going to clear that up, right?
Yeah. I have to make sure I put that out there. But I did want to understand the basis for some of the decisions that the pastoral leadership was making, because that was important to me. And so we run into several people who are asking the type of questions you're asking about having some of that foundational training to help with the inner workings of the church itself. But what also happens, though, is that we find a large percentage of those people, their appetite is whetted, and they want to go on into the full-on degree program. And that's what happened to me.
Yes.
And so I can attest from both perspectives as to the value of the overall theological education. So this is something that's very much in demand right now. It's also something that's very much needed right now. And so Grace is stepping forward to meet that demand and that desire.
Willie, you mentioned something that I think that's very important. As a deacon, you wanted to have an understanding of how decisions were made by pastoral leadership. That is probably the most relevant, in my opinion, question, rather than being able to say, I'm going to oppose this decision. Yeah. Because frankly, we don't like to admit that we don't understand something.
Correct.
When the guy's working on my car, and he's telling me that the computer chip is not speaking to something else, and that, I really don't understand. Yeah. And so you feel kind of like you're at the mercy of that person who's the expert when you don't understand. And now, I probably won't go to become Mr. Goodwrench or anything like that, but I do recognize that I can go online now. There are YouTube videos that will explain what my mechanic has said. And I think the Bible talks about in all you're getting, first thing is wisdom, but in all you're getting, get an understanding. And I think if we could find some way, and it looks like you guys are doing it, to expand opportunities for church leadership to gain understanding of each other. Let's be frank here. A lot of pastors come into new pastorates wounded from their past situation.
Yep.
True. And because people leave for a lot of different reasons. Some of his advancement, promotion, and things like that. But sometimes you leave because it's a toxic situation.
Yep.
Well, the thing that happens is you bring those wounds with you to your new assignment.
Haven't healed yet. That's
And
right.
you haven't healed, and there's trust issues, and maybe we're talking about even a class for pastors to kind of help understand how to deal with those wounds, because my theological education did very little to prepare me, for work in full-time ministry with people. It was focused on the theological education part, and not necessarily the human interaction part as well. So thankfully, I had experience as a pastor before, so some things did not surprise me coming into a new assignment. But you bring these things into your new assignment. Now, as much as pastors do that, watch this now. This is interesting to me. It seems, brothers, that congregations also hold wounds and hurt from previous administrations.
Absolutely.
And you go in as a new pastor and you're excited and you think everybody loved you because you got voted in and all this kind of thing, and they've changed the name on sign and all that, and you find out that you are paying for the sins of your predecessor.
Yeah.
And this is a very, very critical means to why churches struggle in these new relationships. So I think what you're talking about is very important. Do you have a timeline? I know you're in research development right now. We're talking maybe a year or something like that before you guys roll out something like that. I don't want to give out trade secrets, but
it's a 3-year project. So I figured, the first 6 months to a year will probably be the development stage, and then they'll start to crank out some curriculum. But we're working with churches now, even on the programmatic side. That's on the academic side, because we're developing more. We created more practical classes after we had the listening tour, and so we have a church administration class under the pastor's track, so that you can deal with more church administration. We bolstered our counseling program, so we created 4 new counseling classes to better prepare pastors in how to do basic counseling, marriage and family, individual type counseling. And so, so we didn't just roll out PACE as the answer, but we also went to our academic programs and said, this is what we need to do in order to address the needs of the populace that we're serving.
Well,
so some of those now.
Let me add something to what Dr. Haywood is saying right there. Also, a very high percentage of our faculty have been pastors. They have been pastors before, so they bring that level of experience with them, so they can anticipate some of the questions from having been there and done that, and they can more readily address some of the concern from having been there and
over
done
90%.
Right.
Of our professors have been pastors.
It's huge. It's the difference between writing a paper to get a grade in the class versus writing that paper and showing that I understand the content of what I've studied. Okay. So when I understand it, I can apply that better. So having those leaders in the classroom who are willing to share that information with you from a experiential perspective is very, very good, very valuable. I mean, I couldn't even put a dollar figure on something like that.
That's right.
Let me kind of dive a little bit deeper into this in terms of your student and how you recruit students and who is Grace for. You've gone through the country and you've talked to people. So let's say I'm a lay person, right? I may not be an officer in my church. Let's say I now have time. I'm retired, 60, 65 years old. Tell me what you think the value of me going and say, even getting an associate's degree from a school like Grace School of Theology? What is that value for me as I sit in the pew, I listen to my pastor preach, I attend Sunday school, I go to Bible study. What is the value of me at this point in my life, if I'm 65 years old and retired, in getting theological education?
Okay, I'll take the first shot at that. Um, an example I use oftentimes with people, especially the way you frame it up, let's say 65 years old, they have the time now and all that. So they have life experiences. They've gone through some bumps and bruises, hurts and pains, and all that sort of thing. But the thing that jumps out at me is that we oftentimes talk about the joy of the Lord, experiencing the joy of the Lord. And it's one thing to go 55, 60 years of life and come to the realization there's got to be something more. There's something deeper here. That it's something more than the anecdotal stories and all that sort of thing. And so you dive into a seminary level class, and then you start discovering, wow, there are aspects of this that I don't know, that I did not know, that I would have handled things differently had I known this, et cetera, et cetera. And so what actually happens is your appetite it increases for experiencing a deeper fellowship with the Lord. And so as you feed that, it just typically grows and grows. And then as they grow, the tendency is they want to share that knowledge, that information, that experience, excitement with others. And so that person who is coming in, a seasoned saint, for example, they are excellent candidates for taking something like this. And what'll happen is, in many instances, it seems like some of them feel like this is supplemental to what I've learned all my life. And it could be, but more times than not, it becomes primary.
Yeah.
Primary.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like a seasoned saint who's getting more information, and some young whippersnapper comes up to him and got all the newfound answers, and they can tell him in no uncertain term, sit down, you're wrong. It just goes like that.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Now, maybe Willie, you can address this too, or Dean. What about the fear factor? So I am that 55 to 65-year-old person, or maybe even 70 years old, and I haven't matriculated any type of educational institution maybe since high school.
Sure.
I'd have to search and go back in the annals of time to get my high school transcript. Maybe I'm afraid of this idea of college education at this point in life. What would you say to that potential student?
So let me share a couple of things. One, on what Willie just shared, and then two, on what your current question is. And I'm just kind of reminded of what Paul said in Romans chapter 10, starting at verse 1. He says, "Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they may be saved. For I bear them witness that they have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. For they, being ignorant of God's righteousness and seeking to establish their own righteousness, have submitted to the righteousness, have not submitted to the righteousness of God." So what Paul was telling them, the saints in Rome, is that they had this burning for God, but they had no learning for God.
That's right.
So, and he wasn't talking to just preachers; he was talking to the
Right.
whole church. And
Right.
so, in order to I believe, know God in a different way, at a different level, a deeper understanding of Him, you want to enroll in a program that can teach you, and it's organized, coordinated, so that you learn what you need to learn. That's number one. And number two, even when Paul preached to the Bereans, what did they go home and do? They went home and searched the scriptures to make sure that what he said was accurate, right?
That's right. That's
If you
right.
read Acts chapter 17. So my point is there's a personal responsibility that we know God, and we need to be doing all that we can do in order to know him, whether we are in the pulpit or in the pews. The last part of what I want to share with you, Pastor President, is I had a lady by the name of well, we called her Mother Dear, but her real name was Geneva Phillips, and my kids didn't know that her name was Geneva Phillips until we went to her funeral, because we always called her Mother Dear. Mother Dear had raised up her three daughters, and after she had raised up her three daughters, she retired, and she was about 75, and she came. She was a member of our church, and she wanted to go back to school so that she could learn. And so she enrolled in our certificate program. And her whole idea was that she wanted to fall deeper in love with God through the study of
Wow.
God's word. And
Wow.
Mother Dear finished her certificate, and that was one of the finest moments that I can remember of Mother Dear. Now about, I guess, a month ago, we buried Mother Dear. Um, but Mother Dear left the imprint of being the oldest in the class, and she hung, and she was in Willie's class.
That's right.
And a number of other people's, it was pastors, it was preachers,
Wow.
it was teachers, and Mother Dear hung right in there with them and received her certificate. And so I would say, don't be afraid if we really believe that we could do all things through Christ who strengthens us. What stops us?
That's right.
Either we believe it or we don't.
Absolutely, and I think that that's a great example. And you hear stories like this, kind of all the time, where people said, "I'm not going to be afraid to continue my theological education. I'm not going to be satisfied with just relying on whether I could Google what Pastor said. I want to know it for myself."
Absolutely.
I think that's a very big encouragement to our seniors and seasoned saints that are out there, that they can come and be a part of learning and growing. But what you said was very important: deepening my love for God and for Christ through learning his word. That should be the motivation for us all, quite frankly.
I had a professor when I was in seminary. He said the most important thing that you'll ever think about is what you think about when you think about God.
Wow.
I'll say it again. The most important thing that you'll ever think about is what you think about when you think about God, because it affects every aspect of your life. It affects from your theology all the way through to your eschatology. The most important thing that you'll ever think about is what you think about when you think about God.
Wow. We've got another question from one of our viewers, and I'm going to put it up on the screen for you guys. And so, what is the enrollment of women to men in your school? And that's and I guess you don't have to give us exact numbers because you didn't get a chance to prepare for that, but just in general, it's a good question because
it's roughly 60-40.
Yeah.
Okay,
we got a large
60% men, 40% women.
Yeah, we got a lot, and the women are catching up fast. Let me say it that way.
Okay.
Because women, we found that a lot of women are not afraid, to get back into school, even though they've been out for a while. They're not afraid of the computer. They just go at it, and that number is creeping up fast. So it's 60 men, 40 to women about right now. That's about where it is.
Great. Let's shift gears here a little bit, guys, and talk about how your educational programs are delivered. You talked about being in 40 countries. I would assume that you're not flying people all over the world to teach classes. So, with the onset of technology and internet and streaming, those kind of things, what is Grace main platform for reaching people teaching people where they are, serving where they something you guys said.
Yeah, it's learn where you live,
There you go.
serve while you learn.
That's right. Learn where you live, serve while you learn.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Good try, President.
yeah, I tried, man. I tried.
You're on it. You're on it.
Let's talk about how you guys how do you do that in a fast paced, ever changing world? How do you do that?
Yeah, we've been fortunate in that we got online in 2011, well beyond the pandemic. So we were strategically prepared once the pandemic hit. When everybody else was jumping online, we were already online. So that became really, really important. And we use a learning management system called Canvas. And through Canvas, we have this software system called Blue Jeans. And Blue Jeans is a synchronous platform where I could teach a class in Houston, and I will have students all around the world sitting in my classroom. They can see me, I can see them, they can talk to me, I can talk to them, and they see all of the other people in the classroom, their classmates. And so what we found, Pastor President, is that many of the students are creating worldwide ministries because they're connecting with classmates that are sitting in their classroom. Plus, we have a discipleship program where all of the students have to be in a discipleship group, which also means it's kind of like a small group in a church. And so we call them discipleship groups. And immediately they create friendships and ministry partnerships that literally span across the world. And so this is how we are able to reach everybody across the world. Now, folks can do it on their cell phone. They can do it on their laptop, their desktop. They can do it on a tablet, whatever their choice might be of the actual instrument. But it's the software that we use. It is, like I said, synchronous. And then about 3 to 5 minutes after the class is finished, it is archived, it's recorded, it's archived, and the students that couldn't make it to class can still view the video, do their homework assignment, get it in on time, and still would be marked as present in the class.
That's right.
That is so basically the benefit here we're talking about is being online. Willie, what is if you know this, the ratio of online students versus in-person students there at your school?
Right now, I would say it's better than 95%. We have
online
with the online, yeah, especially with the onset of COVID, as Dr. Haywood indicated, we were already positioned, so we made that transition very, very easily. And utilizing the technology that he's talking about, people have actually benefited from that. I'm one of those. I like the old school, being in the classroom type setting, but when we adopted this platform, it's exciting. And I'll give you an example, a real example that happened with me. I'm in Houston, Texas, taking Hebrew. The professor is in San Diego, California. He's Korean. I have classmates in Panama, Pakistan, Nepal, Finland, and it was one other, in the Philippines. And so you mix all of that together, teaching this class. And so when the Korean professor said something in Hebrew that I didn't understand, I asked my classmate to help me out, who was a Spanish guy speaking back to me. Wow. And so it ended up being a worldwide learning experience.
Sure.
And if you look at the things that are transpiring in the world today, I think Jesus is very much pleased that he has believers, brothers and sisters around the world, all submitting to his word in a group setting. And Amen. That's what we have using the technology at Grace School of Theology.
You know what? And guys, don't worry. If you got a few more minutes, we can extend this a little bit because I do want to talk about the luncheon.
Yeah, we'll
But
talk.
I've got a question here because you raised the issue with the ideal of worldwide. Um, as we know, there's a lot of emphasis within the church today, particularly in the African American church, on maintaining a cultural distinction and learning more about the cultural distinction of the African American experience in America and in the Black experience, perhaps worldwide, but certainly in America as it relates to the dynamic tension, if you will, that sometimes comes between what we would call our white brothers and sisters in their evangelical expression and our Black brothers and sisters in their evangelical expression, because it's like the war of the evangelicals in many ways. But what does grace offer to that pastor that says, I'm preaching to a Black congregation, and and there are certain distinctives of African American cultural religious experience. What does grace have to offer for that person?
Yeah, remember I said that we are biblically accurate and culturally relevant, and
Mm-hmm.
that means that's not just hollow words or those are words that really mean, or phrases I should say, that mean a lot to us. So, I'd say 2 or 3 years ago, a young man by the name of Dr. Thomas Beavers came to me and said, Dean, we need to start a Black church studies program at Grace. He said, because I believe that we're missing out on an opportunity. We have a number of students that are driving all the way to. He was in Alabama. He said they're driving all the way to Georgia to go to school there because they feel like they can get a more of a, what you might call, a relevant education. He said that one of the young men came to him and said, "Hey, I asked my professor at this particular school, what did he think about the George Floyd incident?" And the professor said, "George who?" And
Mm-hmm.
so the young man was so discouraged that he dropped out of that particular seminary. It's PWI, we call them, a predominantly white institution.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was driving away from Birmingham all the way to Atlanta. And so, Dr. Beavers explained to me that, we really can make an impact in this area. So what we did was we got Dr. Thomas Beavers out of Birmingham, Alabama. We got Dr. DZ Cofield from Houston, Texas, someone who's a close friend of mine, and I did my internship with DZ. And then we have Dr. John R. Adolph of Beaumont. And all of those are very fine gentlemen, well known in their preaching craft, but great ministry minds. And they, along with one of our other professors, his name is Dr. Ken Wilson, who is the far most expert in Augustinian theology. And so those four gentlemen make up our team to produce what we call the Black Church Studies program. And in that particular program, you get history, you get culture, you get the tremendous contribution from the Black church from its inception up to today. You also get key leaders. They talk about Black preaching. They talk about Black polity. You that's a
Yeah, yeah, Lord.
we could have a 5 hour or 5 month
Yes,
discussion on that. But
yes,
anyway,
absolutely.
they get into all of the governance and what have you of the Black church, and it's really really rich. We've had, to our surprise, we had a lot of white folks that signed up for that program as well, whites as well as Filipinos, or I should say, I'll just say non-blacks. Let me say it that way,
Okay.
because it was a lot of number, I should say, a number of ethnicities that signed up for the class, and so it's going strong. Keep, if you would pray for that program, because
Right.
we'd like for it to grow and
Amen.
expand.
Yes.
But it's on its way, and we are very excited as to what people will learn in that particular program. So it's called the Black Church Studies program right here at Grace School of Theology.
That is awesome to hear, and I think that there's opportunities that we can certainly encourage people that have interest in pursuing a pathway in Black church studies. Does that go all the way to a concentration for the D-Min students, or is it master's level, or
You can
start at bachelor's and go all the way?
You can get a certificate in Black church studies. You can get a concentration at the bachelor's level,
Okay.
or you can get a concentration at the Master of Ministry, and it stops right there. But
Okay.
you can always take the classes as electives for either theology or humanities.
Oh, nice. Very good. All right, guys. I wanted to be in our last few minutes here is talk about the fact that you are coming to Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yes,
And
sir.
that's our neck of the
Forward to
woods.
it.
This Saturday at 12 noon, and I'm going to try to put this flyer on the screen. So y'all bear with me. I'm not necessarily well versed in this, but we're going to try to get. Let's see, the flyer. Oh, there it is. How about that? Can you see it?
All right. We can see it.
We got it. All right, folks, you can see this flyer. There is a barbecue luncheon with the president and the provost October 1st, this Saturday from 12 noon to 1:30 p.m. here at the Pilgrim Baptist Church, 1331 Gay Street, Fort Wayne, Indiana. If you're in Indiana and you are near Fort Wayne, or you're close by, or in the city of Fort Wayne, we certainly want you to be able to come by and have lunch with Dr. Haywood, Pastor Dr. Cofield, and I believe, Willie, you're going to be there too. Isn't that right?
Yes, I will.
All right, and meet the former deacon, Willie Gaines. And
President, you know he's not gonna pass up some barbecue, man. Come on.
No, not at all. And listen, I was thinking when he was talking about the number of people in his classroom, Dean, I think we're going to be looking forward to Willie getting invited to preach in Finland. That's going to be
There you go. Now you go.
This luncheon you can be able to register with the QR code here in this particular luncheon, and I'm going to scroll through the. If you don't use QR, there is a web address to register. There are door prizes that are going to be shared, and for people in Fort Wayne, let me tell you, we reached out to some other barbecue spots that didn't get back to me, but we did connect with Lucille's Barbecue, which I've had, and Lucille's Barbecue is very good. And we're going to ask you to come and enjoy that barbecue.
It's free. This barbecue is free.
Free barbecue. So you can't beat that. So register, one and all, 60, 65, 70 years old, 35, 25, 20 years old, minister, lay person. This is for you. Get your registration done by Wednesday.
Correct.
By Wednesday. That helps us get a count. Now, that doesn't mean that you might not be able to sneak in there on Thursday or whatever the case may be, but get that registration done by Wednesday. So hopefully you've taken a screenshot of this particular flyer. If you don't have registration information, you can call our church office at 260-424-5416. That's 260-424-5416. Or you can email me, which is the best way, at the word president at gmbsci.org. That's president at gmbsci.org. So we want to certainly invite you to come to lunch, meet these very fine gentlemen, and they'll be glad to have the time to spend with you and be able to get to know Grace School of Theology. This is a taste of grace that we're having here in Fort Wayne this weekend. I hope that we're able to get as many people as possible. Tell your friends, neighbors, ministers, your pastor that it doesn't cost anything. It's going to be free. Come on out, eat some barbecue, listen to what we have to say, and
Have a good fellowship.
yeah, have a great fellowship. We're going to just really have a good time in the Lord, and you can find out more how to apply for grace. I think Willie, you'll be here to explain the application process and
Yes.
what and how you can go back. Like I would have to go back to 1980 to get my high school transcripts, but those things are like a lot of that stuff's online. People don't realize it. You can grab college transcripts, things like that, online. They've been posted, and so it's not as hard as you think. So, gentlemen, I'm going to give you some time to share any wrap up, anything that you want to add about this weekend or Grace School of Theology.
Willie, I'll let you go ahead. I'll take the rear.
I would say simply with respect to the weekend, we're looking forward to meeting everybody who has interest or desire. And I definitely encourage everybody to come out. This is really a work of the Lord. It's not just Grace School of Theology, but we firmly believe that we're doing what God would have us to do as a part of a worldwide ministry. And we're getting involved in the lives of men and women across the country and around the world. So we look forward to seeing you. We encourage you to be there. Bring your questions, prepare to get answers. Let's fellowship together, and let's turn it into a worship experience.
Right.
Yeah, let me just say that same weekend, President, we are also hosting what we call the hybrid church webinar that morning from 9 to 11:30. You have some powerful preachers that I talked about earlier. We'll start off with John Adolph, and they'll be presenting on how to do hybrid church online and in person. We'll follow him with Dr. Thomas Beavers, and then Dr. DZ Cofield will be batting cleanup. And again, it's a free seminar. You can go to our website, gsot.edu, for more information. That's gsot.edu. It's on the hybrid church. We'll also have a download on how to walk you through some shifts in your church to do to make your church into a powerful hybrid church. And then lastly, Pastor President, let me thank you for the opportunity to be a part of your program and to be a part of your ministry. We don't take it lightly that you've allowed us to connect with you. It's been a journey of joy, and we appreciate the focus, the emphasis that you have on developing spiritual leaders so that they can become all that God has called them to become. So again, thank you, sir. And I look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Yes, sir. I think about that lineup you just read off, Willie. You talk about DZ, my good friend, is batting cleanup. Every one of those guys swings for the fences. so
there may not be anybody on base anyway, right?
Yeah, it's going. It's 4 home runs in a row. It's like, and so it's going to be great that webinar, and certainly, we want to continue this relationship. I thank you, gentlemen, for spending your time with us this last hour or so to talk about Grace School of Theology, and hopefully we'll look forward to getting some more students. If you want to register and you decide you want more information, contact Grace School of Theology at www.gsot.edu, and also make sure you mention that you heard it on the President's Hour.
Yes.
Make sure you mention that you saw it on our Facebook page or YouTube. We're going to be bringing you all this kind of information as we go forward. Go to our YouTube page at GMBSCI TV. That's GMBSCI TV, and subscribe. We need your subscriptions so that we can continue to build and grow our audience here for the President's Hour. Also want to let everybody know that coming up in the morning of October 1st will be the launch of the Women's Auxiliary Program on General Missionary Baptist State Convention of Indiana called Women on the Move. with your host, Minister Stephanie Harden. There's going to be a focus on mental health and all of domestic violence. So that's going to be a great program. That program is going to be on twice a month on GMB SCI TV. So you don't want to miss. Our station is growing. We hope to bring other programming. We have a men's program that we're beginning to develop for men's ministry on GMB SCI TV. And again, thank you guys for being a part of our show today. And folks, we thank you for all of this, and we'll see you on next time. May the Lord bless you real good.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, this is Pastor Raymond C. Dix Jr. thanking you for watching another edition of the President's Hour. Tune in next week for more of the same relevant talk and important information that we're going to share right here on GMB SCI TV. Look forward to engaging you on next week. May the Lord bless you and may the Lord keep you is our prayer.